Well, those that have retired or are about to retire, we might be able to save you some money and, well, at least point you in the right direction. John Grocke is a financial planner. John, welcome. I know you're an old hand
Ken,
at this.
thank you.
Things are changing rapidly, aren't they, for people that are retiring?
They are. I think there have been recent changes for people that get part pension. It's more difficult for people to be eligible for pension, and that's going to change significantly from January 2017, where the new rules come in.
So what should people be doing? I mean, most people have got super quite clearly, but once you retire, you've got to change things. Do you go more conservative? What do you do?
I think it's interesting. It's going to vary depending on people's capability and what they've accrued for retirement. I think the big thing is they need to get some advice and make sure they've sat down with someone probably a good deal of time before they're actually retiring.
When you say a good deal of time, what, a year, 6 months, 2 years?
I think it would be ideal 5 years prior to retirement, but certainly 3 or more years.
Yeah. And how do you know you're getting a good financial planner? I mean, we know you're a good financial planner, but you cop a little bit of bad flack in the newspapers occasionally, in the press, don't you?
We do. I think, first of all, the guidance would be that they need to be a member of their association, the Financial Planning Association. There's some recognition of the fact that if they're a member there, they're supervised. I also think that word of mouth goes a long way. If people are talking to friends, colleagues, people that have had a good experience, by and large, most financial planners are doing a great job. There have been an element, particularly around the GFC some years ago, where things weren't as they should have been, and unfortunately that tars everyone in the industry.
So make sure they're accredited and do your homework, talk to other people?
Generally speaking, accreditation is essential now for all financial planners, but a chartered financial planner is a planner who's actually gone through a very rigorous program, so that would be a starting point for those at the highest qualification level. But experience, years in the industry, and word of mouth and recommendation from your community is probably good.
You'd be studying all the time. Every time you open the paper, there's a change or a proposed change.
Professional development is an ongoing thing, and I think it is for most disciplines where ongoing education is part of the legislative environment. So changes occur all the time, and I don't think that's going to slow down at all.
For the better? Or do you sometimes, I was going to say tear your hair, but I wasn't, sorry about that.
The hair's already gone. I think some of it's for the better. A lot of it is actually imposing very stringent rules and framework around which we have to operate in. So it's a highly regulated environment.
If somebody is retiring, how much do they need? I mean, are people retiring with enough money?
It's a really good question, because there's a number thrown around quite often of $1 million being the ideal number.
Sounds a heck of a lot.
But what people don't take into account necessarily is that for some of the people that are going to retire, they're going to get some age pension. And the age pension is probably for a couple just over $30,000 a year. So if you had to have the capital sitting in an investment somewhere or the bank, you'd have to have at least $500,000. So part of it is probably going to be paid by the government as a guaranteed pension.
And with that, of course, you do get the dispensation, don't you, for health and various other things, which is also
there are fringe benefits, and a lot of people feel that those benefits are quite important, and health's a very important one.
It must be tough, as opposed to maybe 10, 15 years ago, when you put some money in the bank and you got a decent interest. Nowadays you get very little. So where do you put your money when it's to make sure it's safe? That's
probably an even more appropriate question with just the current environment, which is quite volatile at the moment. Interest rates are very, very low historically, and probably not going to go up a lot in the short term. So the people that were relying on their deposit earning an interest and paying them an income are struggling.
Well, it wouldn't be keeping up with inflation, surely.
Inflation's probably been pretty benign, so it hasn't been the issue it has historically, but interest rates are certainly, in some cases, causing people to take on additional risk to try and seek higher income.
Well, that in itself, looking at the stock market of late, is also a big worry.
Yeah, look, it is. And Ken, I think the current environment is one that will concern everybody globally because it's very, very uncertain, and uncertainty is not something that goes well with stock markets.
If people came to you and said, John, what can I do? They're asking you specifically, what would you say to them? Or does that change month by month?
I think it changes. It's something you've got to review. There probably have been some signs that things are going to change, and in those things changing, I think people need to make a decision about where they need to sit with their investments, and probably the big thing is they need to ensure they've got enough liquidity to pay their pension or the income that they're drawing from the investments for a period of time, so that all the uncertainty and the movement in their capital value for shares and the like don't actually alter their lifestyle.
Somebody comes to you, what do you recommend? I mean, I know it's a very broad question, but we hear horror stories of some companies taking it all in fees, people are not getting very much at all. Is that still fairly common, or is it getting better? It's
getting better. I think people who have had investments for a long time, whether it be superannuation or investments that aren't superannuation, need to consider or review what they have, because there are offerings now that are certainly lower cost, and probably what's called legacy products, or things that people have been in for 10 years or more, might need to be updated because they're probably paying a bit more than they need to.
Really? Wouldn't their advisor tell them, hey, we can do something better for you?
Unfortunately, often it's not the person who's getting regular advice that's sitting with that type of products. It's the people that haven't had advice for some years and perhaps hadn't reviewed it, and that's just sitting in the drawer and just continuing to grow.
Mm-hmm. If you've got investments, you retire, do you necessarily have to change them? Because you can have medium risk, high risk. Do you go more conservative once you've retired, or should you?
There are probably two parts to the answer to the question. One is that people who retire are often looking for income. Therefore, their investments need to be structured so that, in part, their income is being serviced and helping them to live day to day. So the structure of their investments may change. Whether they're more conservative or not depends very much on how they feel and what they're trying to achieve, because some people, if they have substantial resources, probably can take more risk. Other people will be more conservative because that's their nature.
Yeah, so people should definitely, if, as you say, they're retiring in 5 years, should get advice and get somebody that they trust, and they will hopefully point them in the right direction.
I think, Ken, definitely. The other thing that can be added to that is there's an opportunity for people to consider prior to retirement actually accessing their superannuation. And
you were mentioning that, yeah.
It's called a transition to retirement pension.
Is that wise though, John? I mean,
I think the question is, do people really need to do it? Because one wouldn't take money out of superannuation if you don't need to.
Correct.
But it may be that people are looking to support their lifestyle, and the spirit of the legislation that originally brought this in was, I can work part-time and I can have a bit of income from super to actually be in a similar position.
But in a perfect world, you'd want to leave your money there if you possibly can.
If you can. The other interesting twist to it is that if you have the ability to put money into superannuation before you retire, in the years towards retirement, it may be that you can benefit from the tax benefit of putting that in at 15%, and if you're over 60, you can draw money from your superannuation as a pension tax-free.
Thank you, John. Good to talk with you. John Grocke. John is a financial planner, and hopefully he's helped us somewhat. Coming up shortly, Malcolm will be talking with Mark McBrearty of Home Instead Senior Care. I think this is part 2 of top scams targeting older Aussies, and there's a heck of a lot of them out there, trust me. That's what they say.